Hi YouTube and welcome to my channel. My name is Patrick. Today I'm going to tell you the story of how Linux changed my life. It's quite a tale, so buckle up and we'll go ahead and get started. Alright, so the year is 2012. I've been running Windows 7 for years at this point. The problem was it was activated with a volume license key that belonged to a family member's workplace, and one day that key got revoked, and so all of a sudden I was unable to use Windows 7 anymore. And so I heard about this little thing called Ubuntu Linux. Now, this machine was very weak even for the time. It was a Core 2 Duo machine with 4 gigs of RAM. So I installed Ubuntu Linux and it had the Unity desktop environment, which has a menu bar at the top. I'll throw a picture of it up on screen right now. It's quite a usable and pretty desktop environment even by today's standards. But I was confused. You see, 12 years ago, Linux was even less user-friendly than it is now, and I was a dumbass kid in 2012, barely, but still a dumbass kid. And the problem was, well, frankly, I was too stupid to figure it out. I was confused. Doing things like installing software were totally alien to me. And as far as the commands line went, well, I thought the commands line was some ancient function that only old school sysadmins used. I had no idea how wrong I was, and it's funny to look back at it now with the knowledge that I've amassed. But yeah, I was scared of the commands line, I was unfamiliar with the system, and so I kept using it. I didn't give up, but the whole time I was using it, I knew that I was operating it less effectively than I was with Windows 7 when I had it. Alright, so fast forward to 2014. Microsoft announces that Windows 10 is going to be a free upgrade to all people with Windows 7 and Windows 8.1. And so what do? I go out and I buy a Windows 8.1 license. I got the Pro version because I wanted virtualization and other Pro features. I was starting to get a little more technical at this point, but I still went back to Windows and I rolled with Windows 8.1 for a while, which sucked. It was like all the worst parts of Microsoft all wrapped up into one package. The only good thing about it is that it was more lightweight than Windows 7, which I think is still a worthy testament to the greatness of the product, what little greatness there is anyway. But yeah, it was lighter than Windows 7. That's something you don't really see happening anymore. And I did like the design of it. I thought it looked very modern, a retro kind of way. But at the same time, the actual user experience was so clunky, especially on a desktop like I was running. Thankfully, by this point, I had upgraded my hardware. I was now rocking a 2nd gen i7 with 16 gigabytes of RAM, which was quite a bit back in 2014, and a nice SSD, so I had a decent machine at this point. And the graphics were nothing to write home about, but they were serviceable for the old early 2000s games that I play. But anyway, I hate Windows 8.1, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I've got two options. I can keep using Windows 8.1 until Windows 10 comes out, or I can go back to this cool Ubuntu thing that I honestly had grown to like quite a bit. I went back to Ubuntu. Alright, so 2015 Windows 10 is released, and this is a big deal because Windows 8 was such a stink bomb, and it was really a return to form for Microsoft. So I went ahead and I installed Windows 10 and I activated it with my Windows 8 product key, and I really liked it, to be honest. See, I was naive. I didn't understand all the implications of the spying and everything that was going on back then. But I stayed on Windows 10 for quite a while. Alright, so you might be wondering, when are we going to get to the part where Linux changes his life? Well, let's go ahead and talk about that. The year is 2016, and I'm embellishing these dates and the things that happened a little bit just for the sake of my own privacy. I've kind of shuffled things around a little bit on the timeline. But let's just say in 2016 I got my first job in IT. So I started hitting the books hard, and I really wanted to get into cybersecurity. And in everything that I was reading, Linux was really common in cybersecurity functions. So it was finally time for me to learn Linux properly. So I spin up virtual machines and I have myself a merry old time. It was around this time that I received some of the best advice that I've ever gotten in my career. The systems administrator I was working with, he said to me, "You should take your most powerful computer and set it up as a server and practice IT stuff on that server," basically telling me that I should have a home lab. And this was pivotal because what did I do? Well, I took my second gen i7 and I installed Ubuntu Linux, the server variation on it, and I started learning about Linux on the server side. And this was a huge moment for me because I was no longer afraid of the commands line. And really, the knowledge that I gained from running my own home lab and my own services really propelled me forward in my career. Another thing that really started around this time was my interest in automation. So I was really enthusiastic about setting up all of my Linux servers and services using automation. So I started with Bash, just simple Bash scripts that would set up different things for me. But then I learned about Ansible and Terraform, and I started using those tools to automate my setups, proper enterprise grade tools. Now, this is where the utility of Linux really comes into full force, because with any other platform, if you want to use enterprise grade tools like that and get familiar with them, you're either going to have to jump through a lot of hoops and get a free trial that expires eventually, or you're going to have to pay some pretty serious money. But in the Linux ecosystem, these things were free, and because of that, I was able to learn these important tools without spending a dime. And I think that really speaks to the thing that's special about Linux. You see, Linux is a great equalizer. It gives everybody an equal chance to develop their skills and become marketable. And without Linux, my IT career would have stagnated before it even really got started. Alright, so fast forward to 2021. I've got a few years of IT under my belt at this point. I've worked my way up to a system administrator at an MSP, and guess what? I'm hunting for a new job. And so I did something a little different. I actually set up a demo that I could show potential employers to prove that I knew what I was doing because I had no formal education. And I set up this cool little Ansible and Terraform demo where I created a server in the cloud and then installed the JavaScript version of Quake 3 Arena in it, and it went from just being nothing to a full-fledged Quake 3 Arena server that I could play in my web browser. I showed this to the person who hired me, and that's really what got me on the short list. And let me just say, I still have this job to this day, and this is the best job that I've ever had. The people I work with are kind, the leadership is humble, and they really have gone out of their way to help me and my family. But I never would have gotten this job if it weren't for Linux. I never would have developed the skills that were required for me to impress my employer and get the job if Linux didn't exist, if I didn't know about it. And so it's fair to say that Linux really changed my life. And I started off at this new job as a systems administrator, and then I worked my way up to security engineer, which is where I'm at now. And my boss has been very impressed with my various Linux setups, doing things like reverse malware analysis and all kinds of fun cybersecurity things. I can't go into a whole lot of detail about that stuff because obviously I'm on an NDA, but let's just say that Linux has proven to be very useful and was pivotal in me getting promoted to a cybersecurity engineer. So that's the story of how Linux changed my life. I think it's fair to say that if it weren't for Linux, I would not be where I'm at today. I would not be able to support my wife going through college. I would not be able to have a house full of animals that love me and I love them. You know, it's really because of Linux, I've been able to find success. And through that success, I've learned to find a deeper love for technology and Linux specifically. So I hope this story has inspired you, If you're wondering about getting started in Linux, I'll leave a link in the description to some books that really helps me, specifically some No Starch Press titles. And if you want to do something similar to what I do as a cybersecurity engineer, then go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I give all kinds of advice on how you can get this kind of job. And thank you for watching. If you made it this far, leave a little clown emoji in the comments so I know you made it. And I really appreciate you making time in your day to listen to me ramble. And I'll catch you in the next one. Bye now.